Hey guys, and welcome to this week's wrap-up and currently reading. As usual, this is everything that I read last week and will be trying to pick up in this upcoming week. I'm hoping this one will go by a little bit quicker than they have been, because I didn't really get through that much. I did not finish any physical books. I did finish 4 audiobooks. I'm continuing to read some of the physical books that I mentioned last week and hoping to finish them this week. They're on the longer side, so it's taken me a little while to get through them. But I did finish 4 audiobooks, and I did post actually 4 reviews this past week, kind of a few that I've been sitting on that I've needed to post for a while, and finally have one that I feel particularly proud of is the one for The Fortress at the End of Time. This little thing back here. So, The Fortress at the End of Time by Joe M. McDermott. This one is like existential, deep space, military sci-fi starring a clone, which was quite interesting. It's slow, but it's quite interesting, and I really enjoyed talking about it. I found myself really enjoying talking about it, so I highly suggest you check out that review and any of the other ones that I posted this past week. And then I also posted this past week an ARC haul of all the things that I've gotten from publishers recently. And so if you're curious on what the next things I'll probably be picking up over the next few weeks, the books that I'll be picking up and reviewing over the next couple weeks, then you can check out that and get an early glimpse into that. And I also need to add my 4 audiobooks to this little thing right here. I still haven't gotten a chalkboard yet, but I hope to do that at some point. It's still the first month, but I would love to have something bigger up here to kind of mark down what I've read so far this year. If you haven't caught any of my weekly wrap-ups so far, I've been kind of keeping a tally of the books I finished this year. That's all along the side here. And you can't really see it that well, but I'm hoping once it's filled up, you'll be able to see it. Either that, or I will get something bigger to put up like on this wall right here and just kind of move the camera over a little bit. But there we go. That's 4 more added. So what I finished this past week was I finished Ruins by Dan Wells. This is the 3rd book in the Partials trilogy, the last one, and so I finished up this trilogy and quite enjoyed it. Another of the reviews that I posted was of Extreme Makeover by Dan Wells, which is his newest release, and I really enjoyed that one and enjoyed talking about it and reviewing it. But Ruins and the whole Partials trilogy was also pretty good. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I enjoyed it even more than I thought I would. I actually really like his writing a lot. I like his characters. I think he makes really good characters. And in general, has some really cool ideas that he tends to pull off pretty well and in action-packed ways. And it's a lot there. He writes really fun books. I feel like his books have been really fun to read. There's a lot of really cool ideas in the Partials trilogy, and each book kind of raises the stakes a little bit more, makes things a little bit more clear as it goes along, as it should. And I feel like each book was individually quite good and can stand out from each other as individually good books, and the whole trilogy as a whole is pretty good. And it's basically, I've mentioned this several times before because I've been talking about this trilogy over the past month or so. I've talked about what it's about, but if you don't know what it's about the humans, us. We created the Partials. They look very, very much like us. They're very similar biologically, and somehow we created these things. They're the Partials, and we had a war with them called the Partials War, and they ended up decimating like all of humanity, and part of that was this disease called RM that the Partials seem to emit from themselves and seem to have a part in. And so the humans there's this one colony of humans in New York on Long Island where most of this takes place. Fragments, the 2nd book, and Ruins, the 3rd book, really branch out from there. And you kind of go on these little adventures in each, and you get to see, especially in the 3rd one, you get to see a lot of different perspectives. And we follow Kira, the main character who lives on this Long Island colony, and she is a nurse. She starts work as a nurse in the 1st book, and you begin to see all the different things that are wrong with this world. Like we can no longer keep babies alive. There's a law enacted to keep women getting pregnant as soon as you turn 18. You are legally obligated to get pregnant, but none of the babies survive, and it's really that's really heartbreaking. And then to see what the cause of it is, and then to go throughout the series and to see the different conflicts going on and what the solutions to those conflicts are, but not really seeing them being resolved because everyone is just too stubborn. It was quite an entertaining read, and like I said, I did like the characters quite a bit. And so I've heard it described as YA. I wouldn't necessarily say it's YA. All the main characters are fairly young. I wouldn't necessarily say it's YA. I feel like it's just an interesting post-apocalyptic idea, despite some of the tropey things that are in it. it does do other things very well. So, and I also finished Bloodline by Claudia Gray. This is the first Star Wars book that I have ever read, and I listened to it, and it was quite an interesting experience, I have to tell you. I don't know if any of you ever listened to a Star Wars audiobook before. Was not quite expecting what I got. There's lots of they put lots of music over top of it. They take all the Star Wars music that John Williams has composed and put it over top of it, along with sound effects all the time. There's constant sound effects happening, and some of the voices, like for C-3PO's in the story, and when he talks, the narrator's voice is made more robotic, like filtered to be more robotic to sound like his. And it's kind of interesting, it's kind of funny, and I'm not sure if this would have worked if it was not a Star Wars book, if it was not related to Star Wars anyway. The story is pretty straightforward, and it doesn't have a whole lot going on in it, but it follows Leia after the original trilogy, and I really enjoyed her as a character, especially in this. I feel like she came across really well. I found even more respect and admiration for Leia as a character because of this book, and I really enjoyed reading from her perspective, and I feel like it worked really well reading from her perspective. Basically, the Empire is no longer, and so she is a part of this Senate, and she kind of disagrees with how it's being run at this point. Nothing is really being done. No one really has the power to say do this and do that. Everyone has to vote on everything, but everything keeps being stonewalled and blocked, and nothing is happening. Nothing is getting done at all. But she's still on the side of the side that brought about this form of government, like the rebellion. She's still very proud of being a part of that. And she's kind of not sure how she feels on things, because there's this whole group forming around the idea that maybe we should have an overarching ruler again, someone that has the power over all of this to dictate things and stuff. And she's very concerned about this. There's just one guy in particular that we meet that seems to have a sort of very, very high interest in memorabilia that we may recognize from some of the movies from the Empire. And he kind of wants it back, but not in the same way. He disagrees with how Palpatine ran things, and doesn't like Palpatine at all, or Vader, but he does kind of have this respect for the idea of an empire. And so when Leia meets him, she's very put off by him, understandably so. He's very off-putting, and just kind of seems a little bit off at the beginning. And it's really interesting, because I feel like the author did a really good job of creating the characters, Leia especially, and this character. He became, after a while, after some trials and tribulations, one of my favorite characters in the book. And I feel like that's going to happen with a lot of people that read this. If you are interested in Star Wars and you like all the movies a lot, and you've been interested in reading a Star Wars book, I feel like this is a pretty good one. And it feels very familiar with the original trilogy. And I feel like it wouldn't work if it wasn't a Star Wars book. Because I already had the connection to the characters and the settings and all that kind of stuff, and the happenings and all that. But as a Star Wars book, it was pretty entertaining, and I did enjoy it quite a bit. I had a lot of fun reading it, and I think that'll be evident with one of the books that I'm going to talk about in a minute. So I also finished Death Mass and Blood Rites, both by Jim Butcher in the Dresden Files. This is number 5 and 6. And I quite like these. I still continue to really love the series. I love Harry Dresden. I love all the characters that keep getting built on throughout this. You start to see more characters become more and more recurring throughout the series, and that's great. I'm really enjoying that, getting to know them better and getting to see them pop up in and out more and more. Plus, new characters are introduced a bunch throughout it, and I think the 5th one out of these two was definitely my favorite of the two. Still, so far, I think number 3 and number 4 are my favorites. Number 3, I think everyone will tell you that's read the series. That's where everything really gets kicked off. Stuff that happened in number 3 is still affecting things that are happening in these books, 5 and 6, and I foresee will continue to affect things for a long time, because it has huge stuff in number 3 has huge ramifications, and number 4 I felt like was also pretty huge, and those two are really great. And number 5 I also really liked. Number 6 was really good, and definitely you learn a lot more. I think my favorite part about number 6 was how much you learn. You learn a little bit more about Harry, see him kind of come out of his comfort zone a little bit, and kind of come out of some of the things that's been within him that we haven't necessarily seen yet. and it's fun to see that. And I can't really talk about any of this stuff obviously in detail because it's 5 and 6 of a series, and that'll continue to happen. I'll be able to talk about these less and less as I read them, but I plan on trying to catch up with the series. It's like on number 15 or 16 or 17 right now. I don't even know how many are out, but I plan on reading the rest of them this year and catching up. And I enjoy these so much, really, really do. I love books and series like this that each one has their own specific mystery or plot going on, but there's this overarching plot that's happening in the background or in the foreground. Both of these especially had a lot going on, having to deal with that overarching plot and all the big themes that are happening throughout these. So I'm really enjoying them. The 6th one is kind of ridiculous in a lot of places. It involves an adult film producer and an adult film set and actresses and actors and stuff like that. And it's a little bit ridiculous at times. Probably the most ridiculous of the series so far, in my opinion, but I still enjoy them. Anyway, so physical stuff. I've been getting through Book Burners. I still have not finished this. This is by Max Gladstone, Margaret Dunlap, Mur Lafferty, and Brian Francis Slattery. The reason I haven't finished this yet is not just because it's thick. I am getting through it. I'm getting there, but it's just that these are written in episodes. Each episode has its own like little plot, and each one feels satisfying when you finish it. So when I finish an episode, I don't necessarily feel like I need to go right on to the next one. And so I tend to put it down after I'm done with an episode. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just something that's been happening. It's the reason why I haven't finished it yet. I kind of tend to put it down and not pick it up again for a little while. So I'm getting through them. I'm almost done with all the episodes, and I plan on doing a full review of this whole thing as soon as I am done. And I am enjoying it. The writing is hit or miss sometimes for me. I think I like Mur Lafferty and Max Gladstone's writing the best out of them. Brian Francis Slattery, I like some of his imagery, and Margaret Dunlap is like, it's fine. But I will talk more about that kind of thing in the review. But it's basically about magic books, and they're very evil magic books, and these guys are out to find them and take them in, not necessarily destroy them, actually archive them in the Vatican. There's a secret library in the Vatican, and that's where their headquarters are. The Book Burners' headquarters are in the Vatican in Rome. And they have a secret archive where they keep all these evil magical books and magic. They have to kind of stop it from leaking into the world because of these books. They have to find all these books that people are kind of trading around and opening. Whenever they open them, it leaks out magic. And the magic just has too much evil and bad behind it, and they need to contain it. And each one does have its own like little plot, but there is sort of a plot that's kind of stretching over all of them. That's been built up more and more as you go through. That mostly involves the main character's brother, but I do kind of tend to read an episode at a time, not necessarily move on to the next one right away. So that's a thing, but I am not enjoying it. I am enjoying it. So, and I'm also getting into Dead House Gates by Steven Erikson, the second book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. I am getting quite a bit out of this. Actually, I'm enjoying it. I realize more and more as I get into it, and I remember more and more that I really, really love Steven Erikson's writing. Maybe not the dialogue necessarily. I mentioned this when I read Gardens of the Moon in 2015, I think, that I liked his writing, but his dialogue is a little bit strange sometimes, but his writing in general is really good, and I'm enjoying it. And it's just got a lot going on. I will talk more about this when I'm done with it, but this is an epic fantasy series with a very high learning curve and with a lot of different things happening. So I am enjoying it. This would be my main focus for the week, trying to finish this. And if I can finish this before the week is out, I'm going to start this book back here by Mur Lafferty. This is 6 Wakes. This comes out on January 31st, and I would love to post a review around that time if I can. From what I can tell, the main character is a clone, and this person has been cloned many times. And every time she awakens as a clone, she remembers how the original, or the clone before her, died. But she doesn't remember that this time, and she wakes up on like a ship, and there's blood, and it sounds fun. I'm really looking forward to reading this. I've been looking forward to reading this since I got it, and since I hauled it, and I'm so glad it's finally coming out so I can read it, and I'm getting pretty pumped up about it, actually. So I'm really hoping to read this before the week is out so I can get a review prepared for the day it comes out, and we'll see how that goes. I'll see how Malazan and Book Burners goes. I would love to finish those two first before I even dive into this, so we'll see, but I would love to start this. And I've also started on audiobook. I have just started Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. This is the first book in the Wheel of Time series. I started listening to this once before, and I wasn't able to get into it, but I'm actually getting into it a lot more than I did before. It's more interesting than I thought it was last time for some reason, and I'm having fun getting into it. I'm not going to talk about it too much right here. Maybe I'll try to summarize it a little bit in my next Wiki wrap-up when I'm done, when I'm already finished listening to it. But I'm getting into it. I actually like the characters, and I can't necessarily tell where it's going yet, and I'm interested, so I'm going to keep listening to that. And then another thing that I'm listening to this week is another Star Wars book. It's called Aftermath by Chuck Wendig, and I'm going to see how I feel about this one. Since I like the other Star Wars book, maybe I'll like this one too, so I'll give this one a shot. I don't know much about it. I know it takes place in between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy, I believe. I'm pretty sure. And if I'm wrong about that, then I will correct myself next week when I actually listen to it. But that's a pretty quick one, so I'm hoping to get that through that one right after Eye of the World. And then also, depending on how much I get through those, I will get through also Into the Storm by Taylor Anderson. This is the first book in a series called Destroyer Men. So my brother-in-law, Giselle's brother, had all of these books, this whole series, it's a big series, on his Audible, and he gave us his Audible sign-in and stuff so we could download anything that's on his account, and we did the same for him. And so I got this whole series from him, and so I'm going to give this a shot and see if I like it. I have no idea if I will or not. I think it's about a warship that suddenly gets transported to an alternate history, sometime in an alternate history, and that sounds super interesting. So they're on the sea in a warship, and lots of crazy alternate history things are happening around them. So I'm going to give it a shot and see what I think about it. I was looking at it on Goodreads, and it's kind of polarizing on whether people like it or not. I'm hoping to like it. I would really hope that I like it so I can keep listening to them, because I have a bunch of them already. So I think that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have read anything that I've talked about, please let me know what you think about them. I absolutely love hearing all your thoughts. So thank you so much if you've watched or commented on any of the reviews that I've been posting or the videos I've been posting. I really, really appreciate it. And I want to keep hearing feedback from you. So please definitely share. And that's it for me. So I'll see you guys later with more.